Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Let's recap the week with keywords that made headlines this week. South Korea's top court dismissed Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment, allowing him to return to office as acting president. An appellate court acquitted the opposition leader Lee Jae-myung of election violation charges as well. Wildfires that broke out in Uiseong-gun County in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province last weekend pierced through southeastern regions throughout the week, leaving at least 28 people dead and damaging national treasures. U.S. President Donald Trump announced this week 25% tariffs will be charged on all imported cars starting on April 2nd, ringing alarm bells for South Korea as a top importer to the U.S. The Constitutional Court on Monday decided to dismiss Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment, reinstating him as acting president in the ongoing political turmoil over the December martial law order. Our Oh Soo-young leads us this weekend.
The Constitutional Court has ruled against the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, effectively restoring him to his duties. The judicial bench delivered its ruling Monday, 87 days after the National Assembly passed a motion to remove Han from power, who is also acting president, following President Yoon Suk-yeol's own suspension from office after declaring martial law. Out of the 8 justices, 5 voted to dismiss the impeachment motion, saying there were no grounds to justify Han's removal from office. Only one Justice Chung Kye-sun voted to uphold the Prime Minister's impeachment. 2 justices, meanwhile, argued the impeachment case itself should be scrapped without review, as the National Assembly passed the impeachment motion with a simple majority, instead of a 2/3 majority required to remove a president. Among the 5 grounds for impeachment, the most contentious point had been the Prime Minister's refusal to appoint 3 Constitutional Court justices recommended by the opposition-led National Assembly. The bench ruled that while Han's decision to withhold the appointment violated the Constitution and the law, this did not necessarily betray public trust. One justice said the PM does not have an immediate obligation to appoint the candidates. On the National Assembly's accusation that Han abetted President Yoon in his December 3rd martial law declaration, the bench said there was no evidence to suggest that. It also did not recognise the Assembly's claim that the PM tried to establish a joint governance system with former ruling People Power Party leader Han Dong-un, nor the PM's alleged push for vetoing controversial bills on special investigations. With his near 3-month suspension behind him, Han expressed his gratitude to the Constitutional Court for its, quote, wise decision.
Upon my return, I will dedicate myself fully, always upholding the Constitution and the law, to working hand in hand with our people, the political community, the media, civic organizations, businesses, government officials, and cabinet members for the sake of our younger generations and the future of Korea.
The presidential office expressed its support for the ruling as a starting point for normalizing governance, saying the National Assembly's abuse of its impeachment power was shown to be a malicious political offensive. Out of the 13 impeachment motions passed by the National Assembly in recent months, the court has ruled on and dismissed 9 cases. Ahead of the president's own impeachment verdict, observers say the justices' divergent views on Han Duck-soo's impeachment are worth noting. The bench has been deliberating on Yoon's case for a month after his final trial hearing. His ruling is expected this Friday at the earliest, or before mid-April when 2 justices retire from the bench.
For now, Han's return to office marks a critical turning point. But with President Yoon Suk-yeol's fate still undecided, the nation's political uncertainty is far from over. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And as the nation's acting leader, Han is putting the protection of areas of national interest on top of his to-do list to navigate through yet another looming global trade war. To do that, he will be leading a special economic security task force. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
In his first cabinet meeting since returning from suspension, acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Tuesday acknowledged the challenges facing the nation, from a global trade war sparked by U.S. tariffs to growing pressures on small business owners and the cost of living. He emphasized the need for an all-out effort from everyone, as well as cooperation with the National Assembly amid the fierce standoff between the main rival parties.
Fellow cabinet members, our calling at this moment is to protect the safety of our people, safeguard our national interests amid the ongoing trade war, and swiftly devise solutions to urgent national issues through cooperation with the National Assembly.
He also pledged to leverage his experience, of which he has more than 50 years in public service related to trade and foreign affairs, to protect Korea's interests, especially in the face of what he called a, quote, tariff storm started from the U.S. He called on the members of the cabinet to do the same and to make sure that the citizens can feel the efforts made by the government.
I ask each cabinet member to exercise full authority and responsibility in implementing their respective policies in a timely manner. I also urge you to communicate actively with the public, providing clear and transparent explanations throughout the process and on the outcomes.
This comes as for nearly the past 3 months, South Korea had both its president and prime minister suspended, with the deputy prime minister for finance in control of the government. With the prime minister's comeback as the acting president, the South Korean government can be seen as more stabilized, and a conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump could take place. In fact, he held a meeting that followed the cabinet meeting with ministers related to trade, as his office says that Han was taking on the U.S.-related matters himself. There, the acting president announced a restructuring of the existing external economic issues meeting, which had been chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister for Finance, into the Economic Security Strategy Task Force, which he will personally lead. According to the acting president's office, the move aims to strengthen the government's ability to respond to growing external uncertainties, including the U.S. administration's tariff policies, and to enhance coordination between trade and security issues. 김도현, Arirang News.
This past week was a big one for politics here in South Korea. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo made his return after the Constitutional Court rejected his impeachment following a motion made unilaterally by the main opposition 3 months ago. On top of that, the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea, leader Lee Jae-myung's appeals ruling also came out. We have our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon to tell us more. Hello, Do-yeon.
Good to be here.
So, Do-yeon, Lee Jae-myung was found not guilty by an appeals court. That shook up the political scene here in the country. Tell us more.
That's right, Dami. Let me begin with what happened in court. The main opposition Democratic Party of Korea leader Lee Jae-myung was acquitted by an appeals court on election violation charges. The Seoul High Court on Wednesday overturned a ruling by a lower court which had handed Lee a suspended prison term. Lee was indicted on charges of making false statements in December 2021 during a media interview where he denied knowing the late Kim Moon-gi, an executive involved in a development scandal in Seongnam City, where Lee previously served as mayor. He's also accused of having made false claims that there was pressure from South Korea's land ministry to rezone a research institute site in the Baekhyun-dong area. The appellate court ruled that neither of the statements made by Lee can be seen as spreading false information, overturning the Seoul Central District Court's ruling in November. Take a listen to Lee Jae-myung on what he described as a proper ruling.
I appreciate the court for delivering a proper ruling based on truth and justice, but it's frustrating that so much effort and national resources were spent on something so obvious.
Well, we do know he is a political heavyweight, but the timing of the ruling was also significant. Do-yeon, tell us more about the context.
That's right, Dami. This is important to note because we do know that Lee Jae-myung is the most favored candidate for the next president. And as we all know, there could be an early presidential election that will kick off within a matter of weeks if the Constitutional Court upholds President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment. Take a look at this most recent survey. According to a Gallup survey on 1,000 adults aged over 18 from last Tuesday to Thursday, DP leader Lee Jae-myung was the most favored candidate for the next presidency at 34%, followed by Labor Minister Kim Moon-soo at 8% and former PPP leader Han Dong-un at 5%. Remember, this survey was taking place as the ruling came out, so maybe respondents on Thursday were able to answer this survey with that in mind. But next week, it'll be clear whether voters who had doubts over Lee Jae-myung due to his ongoing legal battles will have changed their minds.
But isn't he completely off the hook from these accusations? What about the Supreme Court's decision?
The case can be taken to the Supreme Court, which will be final and definite ruling. Now, since prosecutors lost the case at the appeals court, they are the ones who will have to appeal the case. Lawmakers from the ruling People Power Party are already calling for prosecutors to do so. If there is an appeal and if the Supreme Court overturns the decision to acquit Lee Jae-myung, Lee will lose his legislative seat and be barred from running for public office for the next 5 years. Here's the thing, the Supreme Court has 3 months to make a ruling if prosecutors do appeal. That means even if the Constitutional Court decides to uphold President Yoon's impeachment within the next couple weeks, a presidential election will be just 60 days away. This means, theoretically speaking, DP Chair Lee Jae-myung could be the president before the Supreme Court rules on his case anyway, which would pause the legal process. Article 84 of South Korea's constitution states that the president shall not be charged with a criminal offense during his tenure of office, barring insurrection or treason. And it's all up to the Supreme Court's decision.
Even if the prosecutors speed up the appeal process and Lee doesn't purposely delay the legal process, the final issue at hand would be the will of the Supreme Court.
Then where does the Lee Jae-myung's trial fit into the picture when it comes to President Yoon's impeachment? I know it's certainly unrelated, but surely there must be some effect, right?
That's right, Dami. This is a criminal trial, and President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial is a constitutional court trial. But we're looking at the two most influential politicians of the nation. Before the ruling People Power Party had a bit of confidence in the trial, of course, because of the first result of Lee being guilty. Many of them had accused Lee of purposefully delaying the trial process, so the final result comes out after the possible presidential election. Now, that message won't carry as much weight. But all in all, both parties are calling for the Constitutional Court to quickly announce the date of the verdict, as the continued vacancy in the nation's presidency only prolongs uncertainties.
Then the ultimate question is, when will the ruling be? Tell us, Toyeon.
Tami, this is already the longest presidential impeachment trial in the nation's history. While many guessed that the decision was likely to come in March, that ship has sailed. Now, one thing to note is that 2 Constitutional Court justices will retire on April 18th, leaving a bench with only 6 justices. Therefore, it's highly likely that the court will rule before then. Now, if we consider the fact that all previous presidential impeachment decisions came on Fridays, that means there's a chance of it happening on April 4th or 11th. But as we've seen, anything is possible.
All right, Toyeon, thank you for that thorough wrap-up today.
Thank you.
Wildfires that broke out in Uiseong-gun County in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province last weekend raged across the country this week, forcing residents and inmates from nearby prisons to be relocated. And it's not just people the fires have put at danger. The disastrous blaze also engulfed a number of historic sites, pushing authorities to relocate some national treasures. Our Song Yujin reports.
Fires move fast, but the scars they leave behind run deep. In South Korea's Gyeongsang-buk-do Province, wildfires tore through entire communities, leaving heartbreak, destruction, and a long road to recovery. This is all that's left of the Seokbomyeon neighborhood in the province's Yeongnam-gun County.
So this is one of the regions that have been hit hardest by the wildfires that have been raging here in South Korea. And you can see the impact right here. So if you look at this building, you can see smoke still billowing from the roof, although there are no flames. And if you come over here, there's also this car that seems to have been completely burned down by the wildfire that hit this region. But it's not just here, because if you look over there, there are also trees that have been completely bare. Local residents here tell me that this area has been hit by a wildfire from a couple of days ago. And you can also see the impact right over there, because what seems to have been a building is now completely gone.
6 people from Seokbomyeon died trying to escape the flames. Every single fatality in the county came from here. Lee Sang-hak is the head of one of the villages of Seokbomyeon.
I had just gotten off work when I saw smoke everywhere on my way home. Something felt off. We could barely see a thing. And then, in just 5 seconds, it started raining fire. I rushed to spray water and told my daughter to get out of the house. There were some old ladies still inside. One couldn't walk, so I carried her out and got her into the car. My ribs are in bad shape now, but at the time, I didn't even feel them. No one in our village died, thankfully, but everything was burned.
The community is still in shock. Neighbors are checking in on one another, some discovering only now just how much they've lost.
그래. 아이고, 피해가 왜 없겠어, 이 사람아. 자네 집도 다 탔다.
그래. 우리 집 다 탔는 건 알고.
그래. 우리 집도 다 타고.
그 상무실은?
상무실도 저기 내 집 빼고 다 탔어.
니는?
우리 집도 다 탔지.
아이고.
지금도 연기가 나는데 뭐.
Their homes weren't the only things destroyed. Their farms, their tools, their way of life, all gone.
What am I supposed to do now? I don't even have a single farming tool left. If I found the person who caused this fire, I'd want to tear them apart.
It felt like helicopters were dropping fireballs because I could see fires here and then there, so I escaped in my car. I'm 72 and I've been living here since I was 8. I've never seen a fire like this in my lifetime.
Park Sun-ok has been running her magnolia berry farm for 2 decades. She is thankful that she is alive, but this question lingers in her mind. What's she going to do now?
I put everything into 2 warehouses, both worth about 80 million won. Now they're gone. My heart is still pounding. There's no electricity, no water, and nothing to eat. Our magnolia berries? Completely burned.
Relief supplies are arriving. Food, water, and clothes. In neighboring Andong, thousands have evacuated to shelters like this city gymnasium.
I was a farmer. Now, I have nothing but my pension. We grew apples and magnolia berries. All of it burned. Everything's gone.
I never imagined something like this could happen to me. Only on TV. Never here.
This disaster shelter offers tents, meals, bedding, and counseling for those overwhelmed by the loss.
We're providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Also, mental health support through counseling for residents who are feeling anxious and disoriented after losing their homes so suddenly.
And it's not just emotional wounds. Healing here means caring for both the mind and the body.
We're seeing a lot of respiratory symptoms, coughing, runny nose, phlegm, and headaches, as many here were exposed to smoke.
Once vital signs are checked,
머리 아프시니까 약은 좀 드릴게요. 어제랑 똑같은 걸로. 근데 지금 혈압도 높으시고 혈당도 높으셔가지고 이따 검사를 좀 해보셔야 될 것 같아요.
those in need of further care are guided to nearby hospitals for more specialized treatment. Relief services like these offer a critical lifeline, but they're temporary. But rebuilding an entire life from scratch takes time. The government has promised to go all out in support.
The government will do its utmost to provide emergency relief and all necessary administrative and financial support to help them return to their daily lives as quickly as possible.
The voices of these people who lived through what can only be described as apocalyptic, need to be heard now more than ever.
다른 데 안 받아. 힘만 어떻게 좀.
아이고, 살다가 80평사 처음이시다. 나라에서 도와줘야 되지. 우리 힘으로는 될 수가 없어요. 뭐 맨몸으로 나왔는데 뭐.
From the ashes of Gyeongsang-buk-do province, a community fights to hold on to memories, to hope, and to each other. 송유진, Arirang News, Andong.
U.S. President Donald Trump this week pressed ahead with his planned tariffs on all cars that are not manufactured in his country. Starting in April, 25% tariffs will be slapped on all imported vehicles. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday local time to impose a 25% tariff on cars from overseas. The tariffs will go into effect on April 2nd, the day Washington is expected to announce wide-ranging levies on other goods from around the world. It will apply to finished cars and trucks that are shipped into the United States. This follows Trump's 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, which went into effect on March 12th. While saying this executive order is going to lead to tremendous growth in the automobile industry, he added many foreign car companies that already have factories in the U.S. would be able to expand their currently low utilization rate cheaply and quickly.
But this is very exciting to me. This is the automobile industry, and this will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen before.
Inevitably, the tariff plan will significantly impact South Korea, which is the third largest car importer to the U.S. following Mexico and Japan. In 2024, South Korea's automobile exports to the U.S. amounted to around $34 billion US, about 51 trillion Korean won, accounting for more than 49% of the total automobile exports. Amid such tariff pressure, Hyundai Motor Group has come up with a strategy to overcome this by expanding local production in the U.S. On Monday, it announced an investment of worth $21 billion US in the U.S. over the next 4 years, including a plan for Hyundai Steel to build a new plant in Louisiana, which is set to supply steel for Hyundai's auto parts and auto plants in Alabama and Georgia. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The birth rate in South Korea continued its positive momentum in the first month of 2025. Around 24,000 babies were born in January, up 11% compared to a year ago. It's the highest jump seen ever since Statistics Korea started collecting related data. Plus, it's the first time ever in a decade that the January birth figure has shown an on-year rise. Experts say the children of the second baby boomer generation have entered the so-called ideal age for getting married. Plus, weddings that got pushed back because of the pandemic took place and contributed to the birth rate increase. Plus, South Korea's total fertility rate, the average number of children a woman would have during her lifetime, also increased from January 2024's 0.8 children to this January's 0.88 children. March 28th marked the 10th West Sea Defense Day, a day remembering the heroes lost during military clashes near the de facto inter-Korean maritime border in the West Sea. South Korea's Navy held intensive drills this week to honor the day. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was there.
Amidst the thin sea fog covering the West Sea, a simulated North Korean vessel crosses the northern limit line on the West Sea, moving southward. South Korean Navy ships and personnel are ordered to deploy in combat formation for training.
전투 배치, 훈련, 둘, 셋!
6 naval ships lined up one after another with the 3,600-ton frigate, the RKS Chungnam, at the front, fired guns targeting their simulated maritime target before maneuvering away in different directions. This naval maneuver training in the West Sea is to mark the 10th West Sea Defense Day, a day to remember those who lost their lives in a series of unprovoked attacks by the North near the northern limit line. The day falling on the fourth Friday of March every year pays tribute to the 55 fallen sailors and Marines from the Second Battle of Yeonpyeong in 2002, the sinking of RKS Cheonan, and the shelling of Yeonpyeong-do Island in 2010. In memorial of the fallen, the Navy conducted intensive maneuvering exercises for 3 days until Thursday, simultaneously on the East, West, and South Seas, with some of the exercises open to the press.
The Navy will engrave the spirit of victory shown by the 55 warriors who defended the West Sea in our hearts. And if the enemy provokes again, we will strike back forcefully and firmly protect our seas.
Since the military clashes with North Korea while defending the western maritime border, the South Korean Navy strengthened the combat power of its naval fleets, replacing outdated warships with new frigates equipped with advanced hybrid propulsion and sonar systems.
The ROKS Daejeon was built with our domestic defense technology, and it's especially a core frigate of the fleet with outstanding anti-submarine capabilities.
With the patriotic spirit of the fallen in mind, the Navy vows to firmly safeguard the waters even today. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Clean eating to keep fit and healthy has long been considered an ideal diet, typically among people in the older age brackets. But nowadays, here in the country, those in their 20s and 30s are actively adopting this so-called slow aging diet. Our Park Gon-woo takes a look at this new trend.
At around midday, people rush to grab their lunch from their favorite spots. What's catching a lot of attention is how many young people are opting for healthier choices. One of their go-to picks? Fresh salads packed with a variety of vegetables and nuts.
I used to eat a lot of high-calorie junk food, which made digestion difficult and affected my studies. Since cutting back, I feel less bloated in the mornings and don't get as tired after meals.
Healthy eating is no longer just a concern for older generations.
I think that your health starts on the inside, and it doesn't matter if your skin looks good. I think it should be a little bit more active starting younger, and then also focus on what you're eating.
The slow aging trend, which focuses on eating certain foods to slow down physical aging, became a boom in South Korea after it went viral on social media last year. And more people from the younger generation are joining in.
Many young people began seeing others on social media embrace a healthier, more vibrant lifestyle that slows down aging, which seemed beneficial and inspiring enough to follow.
As the trend grows, young people are even taking charge of their health by preparing slow-aging diet meals themselves. These meals they prepare involve cutting out simple sugars, refined grains, and unhealthy fats, while focusing on slow-digesting carbs like whole grains and veggies that can also prevent blood sugar spikes. So today I tried making a meal packed with vegetables and fruits like carrots and apples as part of a slow-aging diet. And as it tasted so good, I've also decided to make this kind of meal more often and track my meals as part of a healthy routine. Many are even sharing their slow-aging meals and recipes online, inspiring others to follow suit. However, an expert warns against extreme eating habits.
Health is maintained through a balanced diet. While slow-aging meals are beneficial, they can also become too one-sided. And you need to maintain a balanced diet in the long term, not just for a year or two, before going off track.
She added that occasional cheat days can be necessary for satisfaction, and that she expects the slow-aging trend will evolve through a balanced approach, where combining the slow-aging diet with cheat days creates a harmonious lifestyle. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
That is all we have for this weekend. Thank you so much for staying with us and enjoy your weekend wherever you are.